All right, welcome to the Junkie Chunk Season 1, Episode 1. We are the Chunks. We've got Justin Batts, Drunky Chunk, and myself, Dylan Walter. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Junkie Chunks, on Facebook at facebook.com/Junkie Chunks, on the web at www.junkiechunks.com. Replays are going to be available every week on blab.im and youtube.com under the heading Junkie Chunks.
Yes, sir.
So tonight in the whole chunk, we're going to be talking about the SCOTUS vacancy, likely nominees by President Obama, and the politics surrounding this very contentious vacancy and nomination process. If you have questions and are following us live on Blab, feel free to type /Q. If you're following us on Twitter, hashtag us at #thewholechunk with your question, and we'll definitely do our best to make sure that we include those questions in the show, so long as we have time. So why don't we go ahead and get started here? As most people are aware, as long as you haven't been living under a rock for the last few days, there, Tony.
Hey, I didn't hear about it until you said something, and it was like 3 days earlier that he died. So
that's fair. So, so unless you're like Drunky Chunk up there and been living under a rock, you know that there was a vacancy created by the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. You know, not to make light of any situation or anything like that. I know that anytime someone passes or there's a vacancy in an office such as the Supreme Court, it's, you know, our thoughts and condolences definitely go out to the Scalia family, his wife, his children. But at the end of the day, the country still has to move forward, and so we're going to talk about that tonight and make sure that we do it as respectfully and contentiously as humanly possible, because that's what we do. So,
if contention and swearing weren't involved, I mean, why are we even recording this?
Yeah, no shit.
You know?
So, that was our polite introduction to the topic. So, I think if we want to just jump right in, I know that and this is kind of going to be addressing both of you, but
okay,
the Republicans in the Senate have, led by Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, have basically vowed that there will be no vote on this nomination, no matter who the president nominates, citing that in an election year it's unprecedented for a president to nominate a replacement on the court, which obviously every news outlet in the country, including the fine journalists over at Fox News, have said that that is not the case. Indeed, multiple justices have been nominated and confirmed in election years, including one of the more recent ones, Anthony Kennedy, who was nominated by President Reagan and confirmed in an election year. So, you know, I guess my question is to whoever wants to take it right away. What do you guys think about the Republican majority stating that they're not going to vote candidate up or down?
It's kind of like kindergarten to me. It's like, you know, you have red hair, so I don't like you kind of thing. I mean, it's really childish. Why act like that, and why come out right away and say there's absolutely no one we can feel like we could vote on until there's a new president in office? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If we were closer to the actual election, I could understand their point of view, but they're doing this, and he's got a long time left in office.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't like we're halfway through the year or 3/4 through the year. It isn't November. We're early. We have quite a few months left to go. And I think shutting it down now or saying delay or whatever is inappropriate right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think I would take it one step farther by saying that I don't think it matters how much time is left in the president's term. The excuse that the Republicans are using is that because this is such a politically or politicized climate right now, and this is a very hot topic issue, they want to wait for the voters to have a say in this process. And my thought is, 3.5 years ago, the voters had a say.
Yeah, they already spoke.
Who they wanted to run the country for the next 4 years.
They elected Obama.
Absolutely. And whether you love him, whether you hate him, whether you think he's the greatest president in the world, whether you think he's the worst president in the history of the world, the fact of the matter is he was elected. There's no question to that. It was not a tested election, or even close. There were millions of votes separating the two candidates, and
agreed.
And Obama won. Plain and simple, he won. I mean, the general rule of thumb is the same thing that the Republicans said when President Bush was making nominations to the court. They said that the Constitution says the president shall nominate a successor, and the Senate shall advise and consent, and then ultimately confirm the president's choice to be qualified on the court. Mm-hmm. And that was the statement that Mitch McConnell made back during the Bush era, or during the Bush 43, and he's taken a completely opposite position in following the death of Justice Scalia, who understandably, I can definitely understand why they're hesitant to put anyone forward, simply because whether you liked him, whether you hated him, Scalia was a giant on the court. He was a giant.
Yeah, that's a lot of things I was reading about, is how well respected he is on both sides of the aisle. And then two, just they're talking like this is bigger than it really is. Yes, it's going to be a powerful swing, whoever gets nominated, for how people believe and how they will maybe vote. But at the end of the day, we need to remember, and this is what the Senate needs to remember, is these guys really do have to put aside their political machinations and decide based on the law, and decide on their interpretation of the law, not party line, their interpretation of the law. And I know that their beliefs will somewhat change that belief and mold that belief, but at the same time, that's why you become a justice, is to forego a more politicized version of active office.
Correct. And I think that's I love that you brought that up, because if you look at statements that were made by Justice Scalia, by former Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, most recently, they said that there is no place for politics in the court. There's no place to politicize the nomination process, that when there's a vacancy, you fill the vacancy. That was Justice Scalia's opinion. And most recently, that was Justice O'Connor's position. I believe this was yesterday in an interview that she gave, where she said that that it's a dangerous precedent to set, to have. And keep in mind, Justice O'Connor is a registered Republican, and when you look at everything that Justice O'Connor has said, saying that you have to be responsible, you have to nominate, you have to vote on it, you have to give them hearings, you have to give the President of the United States his due diligence. Because one thing I don't see happening right now is I don't see Republicans saying, let's wait for another election before we vote to close down Obamacare again. I don't hear them saying any stuff like this. They have no issues pushing the rest of their agenda forward.
Right.
Correct.
But they have an issue with the Democrats wanting to drive their agenda, or the president wanting to do his constitutionally mandated job of nominating a Supreme Court
Every
justice.
time they have a job to do, they try to find some way to either delay, shut down, stop, take a break, get out of doing what they're responsible to do. And if they want to do that, that's on them. But at the same time, that mindset shouldn't be forced onto Obama either.
I agree.
What it really boils down to is fuck this guy mentality in the Senate.
Agreed. And the really weird thing is, so it's very sad and tragic that he died so abruptly and unexpectedly. But we have pretty much all the rest scheduled to be like 80 by November election. They're not young people by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, there's definitely two more that are expected to either retire or need to be replaced by the end of the next term for the next president.
Something happened before the election and we had more than one seat vacant. Do you not want him to? I mean, what happens to the Supreme Court at that point if it becomes a compounded issue?
Yeah. Well, basically, what happens overall, I mean, we can get into that, because what happens if there's vacancies on the court, right? I mean, the court hasn't always had 9 members.
Okay.
It's only in the last probably 70 years that they've had 9 members. There was an attempt by FDR during the Great Depression with the works administrations, the social changes that he was making during the Depression. There were attempts by FDR to stack the court, add extra justices to increase the number over 90. There were attempts during the Civil War by the president to stack the court in his favor. But courts ranged in number from 5 to 9. It's gone back and forth over the last 230 years or so. And what happens when they're short of justice is what's on the docket, what's already agreed to be heard, has to be heard. It still has to be heard. Now, what you're probably going to see is a lot more 4-4 decisions. And what happens in the case where there's a tie, right? I think ultimately that's your question, is going to grind the court to a halt.
Exactly.
And it's going to weaken the position of the court in the sense that if they split a decision, if they tie 4-4, the last court that heard the case before it went to the Supreme Court, their judgment, their ruling becomes law. So if it's split, it's as if the previous court's ruling is upheld. So coming into this, the Republicans are willing to gamble right now. They're willing to gamble and say that we might see some 4-4s and we might see some stuff go against us, but we might see some stuff go in our favor with a 4-4 split, simply because they won't be able to overturn a lower court at that point, and it becomes law. It becomes precedent setting, right? It sets a legal precedent, which is what all of our judicial laws, all of our judicial decisions do. So 4-4 is, I was reading something on Politico yesterday where they said that a 4-4 split is most likely to benefit the liberals initially. Something like between 60 and 70% of cases being heard have been already affirmed by lower courts in the favor of the Obama administration, or, for instance, the EPA's ruling on clean power and stuff like that. The courts have already said, yes, the administration has the authority to do this. So if that goes to a tie, then the Court of Appeals decision is upheld, and that becomes law. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that could be in favor of one group or another, but ultimately, your question, does it bring the court to a halt? It really does, because in the next session, next October, they may not take any cases.
Well, not only that, I mean,
they may not take any cases.
Undermines their authority as an entity as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, in terms of just not being a definitive answer to certain subjects. I mean, the powerless feeling of our most powerful judicial branch. I can't imagine what that would be like, just to have a You know, I mean, you're neutered essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, why even have that branch if you're not actually making definitive decisions?
Well, think about this.
Have the power to do so.
Yeah. Well, think about this. Let's say there's a vacancy in the Senate. Let's say that we have a let's say that the Senate's 50-50, right?
Okay.
And there's a vacancy in the Senate. It's up to the governor of that state or the legislature in each state to, depending on the law of the state that you're in, to appoint a new senator for the duration of that term. Let's say that a governor says, "No, we're not gonna appoint anybody. You know, we're just going to let it ride out." It does the same thing. It starts to lessen the authority of the Senate if they don't have a full body, if they don't, you know, things become very convoluted, things become very contentious at that point. And
that same group of people is losing their mind to get that seat filled.
Absolutely. Same group of people is trying to get that seat filled. So, you know, in my opinion, I think that you can't play politics with the highest court on the land, especially when that court was specifically set up, giving justices lifetime appointments to avoid political wrangling on the court. I mean, whether you like the court with a 5-4 conservative makeup or a 5-4 liberal makeup or a 4-4 split makeup, that's beside the point. The court determines what the law means. Ultimately, that's their job. And we can't have ambiguity in the law. We can't have confusion with the law. And that's why we need a strong Supreme Court. Whether it's a liberal, whether it's conservative, whether it's a moderate, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, independent, I don't give a shit. You can't have that ambiguity in the law. It's not fair. It's not fair to the American people. It's not fair to the elected officials that we appointed to serve us to do their job. And they're saying that they shouldn't have to do their job for the next year. 11 and a half months or whatever it is, 11 months and 3 days.
It's not even that long. I mean, consider how long my reading today took me to just how long the Judiciary Committee takes to even decide, and it could be up to 3 months. So we're talking, it could be up to a year and a half if this goes through as deemed necessary by the Senate. It can go up to a year and a half out.
It could. It's highly unlikely. I mean, when you look at the vast majority of justices are nominated and confirmed within 90 days. The vast majority. It's typically about a 3-month process. It's supposed to be about 2 months in hearings before the Judicial Committee, and then you usually get floor debate on the floor of the Senate, and then they hold a vote. So usually it's about, because they have a vetting process and everything like that to determine whether or not they're going to want them to do that. But if it goes much longer, you could be looking at a lame duck session or a lame duck appointment or a adjournment appointment to the Supreme Court by the president when Congress adjourns for 2 weeks in January.
What I was reading about the current Judiciary Council or the people that decide. I can't remember. I just said it. Now I can't remember.
The Judicial Committee.
Something about them not making this or doing the vetting process into May. They stop in May. Is there anything that's real about that, or did I just misread perhaps?
No, you probably read correctly. I mean, you have to remember we've got a Congress that works less than 4 months a year total, 5 months a year. So yeah, they take a lot of breaks. They might stop the vetting process. They might continue the vetting process. But in this, here's the neat thing: under the powers granted to the President of the United States, he can keep Congress in session. The Constitution specifically says in times of great need, the President can call Congress into session. And if as I would consider the vacancy on the court a great need, the President can hold them there as long as he wants. He can keep them in session, whether they want to be there or not.
Yeah.
So, and they have no choice but to be there.
Yeah. Buttholes. Buttholes.
So that's basically the issues surrounding whether to appoint or not to appoint, or what happens if we don't appoint. I'd like to kind of pivot a little bit and talk about maybe who some of the names that are floating out there of justices that are possible, potential shortlist candidates for the president. And
everybody seems to have their 10, and not every list of 10 are the same.
Correct. I think there's a couple names on most of those lists.
Yes,
that are the same. And I think that if you're looking at the first name on the short list, whether you're looking at Slate, Political, Huffington Post, CNBC, MSNBC, New York Times, LA Times, I mean, all of them, all the major newspapers, the Post, all of them are saying Sri Srinivasan, right? He is the District of Columbia Circuit Court of Appeals, one of the judges on the Circuit Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia. 48 years old, which would make him one of the youngest liberal or moderately liberal appointments ever appointed to the Supreme Court. Democrats normally appoint people in their 50s, late 50s. Okay. Republicans tend to appoint jurists that are, I mean, Clarence Thomas, I think it was 42 years old when he was confirmed to the court. So I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. But this would be one of the youngest appointments that a Democrat, at least since the Great Depression, has made to the court. And I think that his record speaks for itself. The fact that he was confirmed 97-0, when multiple justices or potential justices to the federal courts have been shut down. You look at like candidates like Goodwin Lee or Liu. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, so I apologize. But he is on the California Supreme Court. He was shot down. The Republicans voted him down as an appointment to the U.S. District Court as well, to a federal judgeship. And when you have a candidate like Sri Srinivasan, where the president, as well as Republican members of the Senate, during his confirmation hearings, have specifically said to him, and we're talking Marco Rubio, we're talking Ted Cruz, have said, "You're doing an amazing job. Keep up the good work." It's hard to not respect that. It's hard not to listen to that. It's hard not to see that and say, "Hey, you voted on him before, just a couple years ago. Not much has changed. Why aren't you willing to vote on him again? Whether it's up or down, vote him up or down."
That's the funny chess move that this one would be as an appointment, is just the fact that how stupid could Mr. Obama make the Senate look by saying, "Here's the guy you just resoundingly voted in not even 3 years ago."
Yeah.
Not even 3 years ago, you resoundingly did this. It only takes 60% for you to actually choose this guy. You did that and then some.
Yep.
There were no dissenters with this one. There were apparently 3 abstainers.
Well, to be clear, it's 50 plus 1. It's 50% plus 1.
I thought it was 60%. Or is that the Supreme
They have to
Court?
get past. They have to get past the filibusters, so that's why they say they need 60 votes to secure the nomination. But technically, it's a majority of the Senate.
Gotcha.
I think he's definitely one of the candidates that you have to look at. And another candidate that you see on some of the short lists, Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, has been tossed around. That would be an interesting one. I don't know if I necessarily like the idea of almost 60-year-old being appointed to the court. I think that we do need younger jurists on the court. But
so, what was or who was the oldest appointee to the court prior? Like,
that's a good trivia question.
Do you know that?
I have no idea.
I don't either. I was asking, hoping you did know.
Well, I guess we can.
One thing Dylan doesn't know.
Keep talking.
older. I can't type either, so I'll just stop. Yeah, I don't know. I see the Srinivas
Welcome, Thomas.
as just a huge one, just because of the how stupid can I make the Senate look, and that's awesome to me. I do like Elizabeth Warren here. Looking at my little short list I pulled up.
We can talk about that in a second. To answer your question, the oldest associate justice ever appointed was Horace Lurton in
he sounds old.
Yeah. In 1910, he served 4 years. He was 65 years old when they nominated him. So he was definitely around. The youngest Chief Justice ever nominated was John Jay, who, believe it or not, the funny thing about John Jay is he left the court to run for governor of New York because at the time keep in mind he was the first Supreme Court justice ever appointed.
Okay.
So he left the court to run for governor of New York, thinking that was a better position than being able to craft the laws of the United States, and ultimately was replaced by one of the greatest jurists to ever sit there, and that would have been the Marshall Court. It's funny how things work out. But yeah, the oldest guy was a guy named Horace Lurton, I guess.
Interesting.
And the oldest Chief Justice ever appointed was Harlan Stone, who was nominated in 1941 by FDR. He was 68 years old at the time. And he ended up only serving for, I think, right around 5 years. 5 or 6
years. So
it
has happened, but we probably shouldn't make that a regular thing.
Yeah. The Star Wars posters. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so thank you. I honestly don't think that it should be an older person appointed to the court. Not a huge fan of having to go through this process every 5 years or so with the same person. Now, the interesting thing is, prior to 1960, I think 1965, the average age or the average serving time of a justice on the court was less than 15 years. Since 1960, the average age has gone up to almost 25 years. The average length on the average time on the court, and that's evident today. I mean, Scalia was on the court just under 30 years, 33 years, something like that. He was appointed by Reagan. Kennedy was appointed by Reagan. Thomas was appointed more than 20 years ago. So there's I think close to 25 years. But there's been a great lengthening of the amount of time that justices serve on the court. The interesting thing was when Brennan retired a few years back, he had only been appointed by George H.W. Bush. And when he retired, he had only been on the court for 10, 15 years. So it does happen, but justices are living longer. And but you had said, Tony, you like the idea of Elizabeth Warren on the court. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Just, obviously it's a Democrat that would help bring the vote towards that side of the aisle when it is politicized, even though I did just say I don't really think it needs to be that way. But she definitely is someone that isn't shy about sharing her opinions and having a firm belief in certain things. And she seems like a true crusader for, human rights in general. So I feel like that would be, just an awesome thing to have on the Judiciary Council there, and the Supreme Court, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, because how awesome would it be to have someone that actually thinks about that first and then applies that to how they view the law. And so I think that would be great to have.
Well, I think having someone like a humanist on the court potentially could be a good thing, but I'm looking more for a constitutional mind. I'm looking for someone that's going to interpret the Constitution the way the Constitution was meant to be interpreted, because Yeah, it's great. We all have feelings. I mean, we all know my feelings. You know, I'm a radical in my beliefs, but I understand that
I've never heard you ever state an opinion clearly before. No, not one time.
Usually it's yelling and getting really red, but but I think that you really need someone that's constitutionally minded. I mean, I didn't agree with Scalia. I didn't like Scalia. I thought that Scalia was batshit crazy when it came to half the rulings that he put out there. I mean, his dissensions were epic. If you ever get an opportunity, if you ever read SCOTUS blog or read the decisions from Scalia, I mean, they get crazy sometimes.
There's
recently talking about how he asked a question in oral arguments in the affirmative action case that was just decided a few months back, asking, since black people are less likely to graduate from Ivy League colleges, wouldn't they be better served by going to junior colleges where they could excel with other people like them? I mean, he just asked oddball questions and was kind of crazy that way. But at the same time, like I said, I don't agree with his opinions, but he was a giant on the court. His thought process, the way that he crafted opinions, the way that his clerks, how he used his clerks to help craft those opinions was incredible. And one of the neat things about Scalia is, usually he'd have two conservative clerks working for him, but he also would bring a liberal on to argue the other side with him. And if that person could convince him based on the letter of the law, he'd be willing to change his opinion.
Really?
Absolutely. And a number of justices do that. A number of justices bring one person, one clerk from the other side on, and use them to to do the back and forth before the opinions are written or before the vote is taken. And I think that's absolutely an amazing thing.
Well, it sounded like he was very active too, and even in things that weren't quite a landmark case that everyone was following closely, he was still doing a lot of work. You know, he was still, like you said, following what his interpretation of the law was, and getting a lot of paperwork, I guess, and writing done on the subjects that he needed to get done. I don't know. I may be wrong on that, but it seemed like he was quite the worker when it came to his posting.
Well, and he probably was. I know that he definitely did. He did a lot of work, except for when it came to working out. I mean, he was not in good shape. He was chain smoked, drank a lot of alcohol, and ate a lot of pizza.
Yeah, a fine body. I can understand.
The one thing I can say that Scalia and I agreed on 100% was Chicago style deep dish pizza is not pizza. That's just a casserole with fucking bread dough.
Yeah.
But
doesn't mean it's not good.
It doesn't mean it's not good, but you can't, it's like calling fucking, I don't know, toast fucking pancakes. It's just, they both get cooked, but who the hell gives a shit about that stuff? But as for Elizabeth Warren,
what your palate's telling you, that's what it is.
As for Elizabeth Warren, I love her as a person. I think she's a great senator. I think that she is an amazing consumer advocate. She definitely holds big business, big banks, and Wall Street accountable. At least does her best to do so. But I don't know if she would be a good justice on the court. I honestly don't. I mean, you want to look at giants. You want to look at people that are going to be able to convince others and be able to bring almost a unity in the court and bring the conservatives to their side. And that's definitely not Elizabeth Warren. She's a very contentious person. That's not saying that she's not a great senator, because she absolutely is. I mean,
that might be what makes her a good senator, is the fact that she's willing to speak out.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's one of those senators that's not afraid to propose something crazy. She's absolutely one of those people not afraid to propose something crazy. And that's one of the reasons I like her. But for the same reason, I wouldn't appoint someone like, I don't know all the lawyers in Congress, but I wouldn't appoint most people out of the Senate. I mean, I think that there's if there was any senator that I would say to put on a short list for Supreme Court nominees, it would probably be Cory Booker out of New Jersey. I think he's has an amazing mind. His opinions that the legal opinions that he's formed over the years are brilliant. And he's a young guy. He's a great guy. And he has a brilliant mind. And
seems like a long shot, though, as a young guy that's just seems to be getting started on the political stage.
Yeah, who's never sat on the bench before, on any bench before. But at the same time, you look at some of the nominees that we've had recently. I mean, people like Clarence Thomas didn't have a whole lot of judgeship experience either, if he had any. I think he was a corporate lawyer at the time, where he was nominated when he was nominated and had argued in front of the court, but never been actually part of federal court. But there have been a lot of great nominees. I mean, you look at Justice Ginsburg, you look at Justice Alito, Justice Roberts. I mean, they've definitely had some time on the bench before they were nominated. And a candidate like or a potential person like Elizabeth Warren or Cory Booker, they just don't have that legal that judicial experience, in my opinion. And there's a great there's a great group of candidates that need to be considered on any short list. And I go back to Srinivasan. I think that his credentials speak for themselves. 97-0 vote in the Senate.
That's big.
Absolutely brilliant jurist. Gets compliments from both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat. And he's not a far left that the Republicans are terrified of.
Somebody who views the Constitution as a living, breathing document, but more of a constitutionalist.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't view it as something written in stone. We look at the intention, and the justices on the court, they look at this stuff and they say, hey, we can go back to the Federalist Papers, we can go back to what the founders said, what they wrote, what they believed. But at the end of the day, we also have to make adjustments for what that means in society today, right? Yeah, they didn't talk about homosexuality a whole lot in the 1700s. That wasn't something the founders spoke about. But when you talk about people like Jefferson or things like that, where they say, all men are created equal, right? Jefferson, a guy who was a brilliant writer, a brilliant legal mind, felt that a lot of the civil issues of the day needed to be decided then, and I think that if you could find a candidate like Srinivasan that would be able to bring some of these arguments to the forefront, that would be great.
And one that I'm seeing that would be along those lines too is Brian Sandoval from Nevada.
Nevada, yeah.
And the reason that he would be is it's even a bigger kind of slap in the face kind of nomination to this stance of we won't do anything because you want us to do it. Idea, and that one is I guess from what I read today was saying that he actually is more Republican standing, would be more loved by the Republican side of the Senate than even Srinivasan would be as well.
And that's a possibility. I mean, one of the funny things is Republicans said, yeah, we'd vote on a candidate if you put forward, someone like Orrin Hatch. No Democrat president's going to nominate one of the most conservative members of the Senate.
Well, not to mention he's 82.
Well, and that's
82 years old.
And that's exactly what Orrin Hatch said was, I wouldn't accept that nomination because you think that you're banking on me dying. So that the next president can appoint someone else. And but at the same time, I mean, while we said initially that we didn't think that we wanted to see a whole lot of politics in this decision, the fact of the matter is the president of the United States, whether it's a Republican, whether it's a Democrat, is going to nominate someone that shares their political ideology and their political view of the Constitution.
And regardless of the president
absolutely.
Or the time frame, they would do the same exact thing.
There's absolutely no way Ronald Reagan nominates Ruth Bader Ginsburg. There's absolutely no way that President Clinton nominates Antonin Scalia. There's no way that happens.
Yeah.
They're going to find people that are like-minded to them. Now, in the climate that we're in right now, with what the president's able to get potentially approved, he has to look more towards the Senate. He has to look towards that. You're not gonna replace a conservative stalwart on the court with an extreme liberal on the court in an election year. It's just not going to happen. I understand that we would all like to do what happened when Thurgood Marshall left the court and was replaced by Clarence Thomas. We would like to see that, right? We'd like to see that extreme conservative replaced by an extreme liberal. But in an election year, that's not even. Let's just say that all things go the president's way and he gets the vote and it goes through committee and they vote him up. Vote up or down, he's not going to get a liberal through the court. And as a liberal, I respect that. I respect that. It's a process, but we can at least settle for a moderate that's going to vote on liberal issues or interpret the Constitution the way that, for lack of a better term, the way that we view it should be interpreted, or that I view it should be interpreted. More than 70% of the time. And that's really what we're looking for, because when we have a 5-4 court and Anthony Kennedy is the swing vote, that scares the fuck out of me, because Anthony scares everybody. He's not a fucking moderate. I mean, he great on gay rights. I mean, don't get me wrong. When it comes to social issues, he seems to be more in the president's corner, seems to be more on the side of the electorate in the country. But when it comes to business, he was a deciding vote on Citizens United. He voted in favor of corporate citizenship, basically, where you can have unlimited amounts of money being funneled through by corporations into the political process. So he's not a swing vote. Yes, he swings every now and then, but he's not the typical swing vote. He's
a social swinger.
Yeah, he's a social swinger. I like that term. Yeah. I'm sure Justice Kennedy would not like that comparison, but I like it.
Wonder how he likes his milk.
Yeah, I'm sure. Probably well frothed.
Wow.
Another candidate that I really like is Patricia Ann Millett. Patricia Millett is she sits on the D.C. Circuit Court as well. Part of the 3 nominees that Obama put forward in 2013, including Sri Srinivasan. So when you look at, she's only 52 years old. She's only 4 years older than Srinivasan. Would be another great choice. But I like the idea, and so I know that a lot of people expect Obama to put forth another female nominee. I know that a lot of people expect that simply because there are not enough women on the court. And
I agree with that.
I absolutely. They make up 52% of the population of the United States, and they make up, just a few voting members of the Supreme Court. But while I like Millett and I like the idea of Loretta Lynch, I really like the idea of having another first, right? Having another first, having an Indian American on the court gets me excited. It shows that we are, at least in the highest levels of government, we are moving away from a white Judeo-Christian male perspective on the court, and we're being more inclusive, Hispanics, whites, blacks, and potentially Indian Americans. I think that is a huge. It offers huge potential for the court itself.
Yep. Oh, and just from what you said earlier, just the kind of people that have come to Srinivasan and said, "Good job, keep doing what you're doing," means to me that he is working in a not politicized manner. He's staying to the law.
Yeah. And
like you said, a constitutionalist. And if people like Ted Cruz are coming to him and telling him he's doing a good job, then that means that he's impressing both sides of the aisle.
Exactly.
And that's huge.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
And regardless of what your regardless of what your political view is, we live in a time where we need to be able to communicate with people that don't agree with our political views. We need people that can articulate themselves in a respectable fashion so that the view can be heard from the other side and we can move beyond debate. And I think that really needs to be considered when you're talking about nominating somebody who's going to be part of a much more condensed vote that determines how we precedents, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's important to note that of the five, I think there's only five left, right? Five Republican candidates still running, maybe six. The only two that have anything negative to say about Srinivasan are the two people, Ben Carson and Donald Trump, who have never been elected
been elected to office.
To any office, not even dog catcher. You know,
and people that might not even know who he is.
Exactly. I mean,
they've never met the man.
Exactly. So when you look at people like Governor Kasich or Kasich, is it Kasich? I always forget.
I think
it's Kasich. I could be wrong. If it is, I apologize to the governor. But when you look at people like Kasich and Cruz and Rubio, when they're saying that they feel that he did a good job, and when two of them voted to confirm him,
correct.
That says that that they obviously felt that he could do a decent job, and we know that because there are several other nominees that they have not voted to confirm that the president has put forward.
And it really appeared that when this all came out, they were more concerned about them being selected.
Right.
I don't know if that is a legitimate statement or not, but it didn't seem like they reached for Srinivasan as who they believed Obama was going to nominate or may still think he's going to nominate. It looks like they're looking at a couple other people that may be on the short list, but not this short list.
Right. And I think that especially with a candidate with a potential nominee like Srinivasan, they have no choice but to at least give him a hearing and let it be voted in or out of committee. And what I think ultimately it comes down to, and it's going to kind of pull back into the first topic that we had tonight, the first topic that we started with tonight, is how willing are the Republicans to risk losing the Senate over the court system? And I say that because if you look historically at presidents or Congresses who have fucked with the court or attempted to fuck with the court, every single cycle following that incident, they've lost ground in the House, they've lost ground in the Senate, and in some cases they lost the presidency. The American people can stand for a lot of shit. We expect Congress to do nothing. We elect them saying, well, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to fix anything. Fuck them.
Yep.
They want to do it, go ahead and do it.
Here's free money. Enjoy
but as soon as a president or the Congress fucks with the court, you see a polarizing shift one way or the other in this country, at least historically. Now, that might not be the case in this election season. That might not be the case overall. But historically speaking, you don't fuck with the court. And Republicans are seeing huge kickback right now. They're seeing a loss in poll numbers. They're seeing a loss in fundraising capability because there are a lot of corporations that have business before the court. There are a lot of
major
corporations.
They deserve to be reprimanded hard for this childish bull crap.
They do.
I mean, this is just absolutely asinine that this is even an A topic right now.
Yeah.
The A topic should be who fills the seat, not who do we tell Barack Obama to go fuck himself with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? That shouldn't be the topic. The topic should be who's the best choice. And like we've just whittled it down, we've taken a very robust list of good policy and lawmakers.
Yeah,
and we've picked out one guy who is a slam dunk in my opinion.
yeah,
Agreed.
I agree.
He's a slam dunk.
And it'll be interesting over the next week to see who the president does nominate, because he is going to nominate someone.
Yep.
He's straight up said,
yeah.
I'm going to do my constitutional duty, and I fully expect the Senate to do theirs. It doesn't say the Senate can vote. It says the Senate shall vote.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think that's what, and here's the great thing. If I was the president, if I was advising the president, if I had any political sway whatsoever with
He's listening now.
he's listening now, and or at least on a replay, because we don't see him here. But if he's listening now, President Obama, every
Or
time
should we say when he listens on replay?
every time
Yeah.
the Senate adjourns, call him back into session.
Amen.
Every time they take a break, call him back to Washington.
Yeah.
Call a
vacations for
special
you.
session of Congress every fucking day they're gone
Agreed.
to force a vote. And if they don't want to, if the Republicans say, well, we're not going to come back, then hold the vote without them.
That's right.
Fuck them. You don't have to have 100
you don't
members
have
of
to have a
Congress
quorum?
there to vote. You just need a
You
quorum.
don't have to have a quorum. Oh, you
just
do have
need
to
a
have
quorum. Need a quorum call. That's all you need.
So you need what? Quorum's 51, right?
Quorum
That's
is 50
more than-
plus 1. Yep. 50% plus 1. And if it ends in a tie, if you got enough people there to end in a tie, crazy Joe Biden gets a vote.
Yep, and he'll vote for Srinivasan.
Well, I would
especially with his,
I would hope he does,
his
but you
background
never
of,
know with Joe
Yeah.
Biden. He might vote for
Well,
a
he's-
popsicle. I don't know.
But he's actually had a lot of background with the Judiciary Committee. I think
Absolutely.
he actually served on.
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Foreign relations,
So
judiciary, and
he's got a pedigree that people don't really look
Yeah.
at just because he's the vice president.
well,
Is
But he's got it. He could sit on the council tomorrow if he really wanted
he's
to.
a magnificently intelligent man. He
Oh,
just
yes.
he just says some crazy shit,
Right.
but he is
He
is just a brilliant mind.
In a public regard and in a his crazy shit saying regard, he's a poor policymaker. But
Poor
looking
policymaker,
at the
but an
things-
amazing vice president. Let's put it. I mean, he keeps
let's just say
he keeps
the things
Obama
he's
on
done
his
and the
toes.
things in his
He's an
background, he's a great
underestimated
advisor.
vice
He's a
president.
great advisor to Obama. He's a huge, a great asset.
He's a
and I can
huge
see
asset.
now
Totally
I
with a lot of things
underestimated.
He's been doing
Absolutely.
that he's great.
I love
with
the
what he
fact
does.
that he basically reversed the president's position on gay marriage a number of
Yep.
years ago by coming
Right.
out and saying, "Civil union, my ass. If you're going to let people get married, let them get married." He's funny to watch. You never know what Crazy
Yeah.
Joe's going to say. You never know what Crazy Joe's going to say. So if it does get pushed to having to have a special session of Congress to do this, the president can do it.
Yeah.
And Crazy Joe will go ahead and vote his piece if it comes down to it. And
I think this would be his guy, just based on the little bit of reading I've done.
Absolutely.
About Biden's
Well, from what-
background
Yes.
in this field.
well, and from what I've read, over the last almost a week, is Srinivasan was recommended by Joe Biden.
Well, there you go.
So I don't know how true that is.
Ooh.
That's just multiple blogs that I've read. That's why I'm not citing a source, because it wasn't
Got it.
one of our big fours. But it is from a reputable blog. So. But yeah, I'll tell you what. If they don't want to vote on this, I say the president vetoes every fucking thing coming across his desk from now until the election. Every
I hope
single
so.
thing.
Everything.
And I think that you need Chuck Schumer, who is the Democratic leader in waiting after Harry Reid retires after this election. I think that Chuck Schumer needs to say, look, you fuck us on this and we take back the Senate, we'll go nuclear on your ass. We will remove the filibuster from the Senate like they did in the House.
Yep.
And we will remove it for all judicial appointments as well. And I think that the Republicans have to respond to that. And if they don't, then yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, if Hillary wins, good luck, because her first appointment is going to be Barack Obama to the Supreme Court. She's already said that she would appoint Barack Obama to the Supreme Court.
That's insane. I mean, that seems like to me just the way outside. I'm surprised she would say something like that with just the kind of It just seems so fanciful that this would be a real thing to happen.
Well, it wouldn't be unprecedented. President Taft was nominated after he left office to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. It wouldn't be the first time.
Right.
And he served for several years, 20, 30 years on the court, on the Taft court in the 1920s after Wilson was no longer president of the United States. So it wouldn't be the first time that we've had a president.
I don't want to say I'm a good old boy, but I got to tell you, I like the idea. I'd be interested in seeing it.
Obama, you mean?
As a Supreme Court justice.
Okay.
I would too. I mean, if you look at qualifications.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not sure what they
graduated first in his class from Harvard Law School. Was the first minority ever elected editor of the Harvard Law Review. Was a constitutional scholar and professor at University of Chicago. And what? There's one big one I'm missing. Yeah, he served as president of the United States for 8 years.
Oh, that he did that.
He definitely did that. So he has an idea of how laws are made and how they should be interpreted. And
I didn't know he was a lawyer. I just thought he was, a politician.
Well, most of our politicians are lawyers. Absolutely.
Yes, many of them.
Nice. Well, he said, I mean, besides the eloquence there too. I mean, I would relish looking forward to reading his opinions on different votes.
That is where I was coming from. I think
that stuff would be, gold bound, gilded books. I think.
Oh yeah,
sold.
I think it'd be awesome.
Sold by the pound,
without a doubt. I mean, I'm a big fan of the president. I think most people that know me know that. There are things I disagree with that the president has done. The fact that Guantanamo Bay is still open bothers me. The fact that it took this long to shut down the NSA's bulk data collection bothers me. The fact that marijuana has not been decriminalized by this administration bothers me, and there's a number of other things that bother me. But the lack of reform, the lack of reform in the judicial process as in regards to mandatory minimum sentencings and things along that nature for first-time offenders or for nonviolent offenders. People that get pulled over with marijuana in their pocket or stuff like that. I mean, look, I don't smoke weed. I don't. It's not something I do, but I don't think it should be criminal. And it disappoints me that President Obama has not taken steps to tell the FDA to back down or the DEA to back down on things like this and pushed for legislation decriminalizing it at least as a class. What is it called? A Class A controlled substance or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but it's kind of crazy that it's 2016 now, and we're still talking about. We should definitely
make that a subject in the future.
Oh, without a doubt. Maybe we could get Bill Maher on the show. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that'd be easy.
Yeah. I hear he might get in some trouble for lighting up and smoking on his show the other day.
Yep. Even though he had a medical license.
Yeah, and was on private property.
Zach Galifianakis lit up on his show.
That
I'm thinking of the right person, right?
Zach Galifianakis.
Bill Maher
did as well.
HBO show, right?
Yeah, yes. Bill Maher, Real Time with Bill Maher.
Yeah.
There's a guy I don't necessarily agree with, even a majority of the time, but he's definitely fun to watch.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely fun to watch. But I do have a hard time agreeing with that guy on a regular basis. Some of his opinions are pretty far out there.
I can see why we would be upset about some of these things not becoming decriminalized or different change that hasn't been pushed through. But with the kind of pushback that he's gotten over 8 years,
right? But
it's kind of hard to say, "Hey, I want to do this now too," because they're just going to say, "Well, instantly, middle finger in the air, fuck yourself."
Absolutely, I agree with that. What I'm saying is the stance the administration has taken, being able to stand up and say that I disagree with this. I want to move in this direction. I asked Congress to move in this direction.
Right.
He hasn't done that either.
Nope.
So do I think that he's done a good job while he's been in office? Yes. Do I think he genuinely cares about the nation and the world as a whole? Absolutely. But there's a lot of things that I disagree with him on. And those are just a couple of the things that I do. I think that they definitely gave him his Nobel Prize a little bit early, but I mean, I think that if they had to do it all over again, they probably would have said, yeah, some of those drone strikes might have been a little too close to civilian centers. But
I like that. I like that the Nobel Prize came as a kind of global fuck you to the way the American policy is.
It was a global fuck you to 49% of the United States, without a doubt.
Yeah,
it was a fuck you to everyone that said, see, even when you're growing up in America, you can become anything you want, even if you're a Muslim Kenyan from, what did that guy say the other day? Go back to Muslim Town or whatever it was.
That was you.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Hey, go back to Muslim Town.
Muslim Town. I mean, so. Yeah. I think that it was a global fuck you by the Nobel Committee to award him that. And
I did say it satirically. I did not say it truthfully.
Absolutely.
I want to make that clear now that you're calling me out on air on that.
Well, it was said in jest.
I did say it facetiously. I did not say it seriously.
It was said in jest and even brought back up in jest. So, but it was, I mean, that's how it is. I mean, that's the kind of shit he's had to deal with. And you're absolutely right that there's no way most of that stuff would have gotten through Congress outside the first 2 years when he had control of the House and the Senate. And
but that doesn't mean you roll over either. You should still be voicing.
You still stand up for what you believe in. You still put your beliefs forward, especially in the way that we know that the president can do it, in a very respectful, very educated way, and be able to explain it with passion, be able to explain it and get people to listen and vote. I mean, listening to the president speak when he did his gun control conversation with the nation, I was sitting on my couch, watching him and going, man, he's just an inspiring individual, And I know that,
agreed.
Justin, you and I had a conversation last night where it got pretty heated, in part of the conversation. And, because we're a very passionate group of people, we have very strong beliefs, and we're not afraid to share those. And I think that the president does a good job doing that exact same thing, not being afraid of sharing stuff for most things. But there are
I would agree with that.
Things that he fails on.
Yep.
But you can't, nobody's perfect all the time. And any president,
nobody's perfect. Period.
Nobody's perfect. Period. And I was going to say, and especially that rule is especially true when it comes to presidents, where none of them are perfect.
No,
because it does take a certain amount of, I don't know the phrase maybe that I'm looking for, but you do have to have a certain amount of ambition, unchecked ambition, to want to become president of the United States.
And a deft hand.
Yeah, absolutely. But so I think that there are a lot of good potential nominees for the court. I think that overall, with the half dozen or so Republicans coming out and saying that they believe that the president should not only should he nominate someone, but that they should be given a fair hearing before the court. I think that you very well may see something. And there was a great article that was written by Kyle Drennan talking about Andrea Mitchell, where Republicans are really they're really losing ground on this issue, and they are seeing already seeing a handful of Republican senators that are saying, no, we don't agree with Mitch McConnell. We don't agree with not giving the president his constitutional or the constitutional responsibility that his office mandates that he do. So who knows? We might see something. We might not see something.
It's a positive step forward anyway, that people are speaking out in opposition of a stupid position in the first place.
Yeah. Well, it's positive, but you have to remember at the same time, while Mitch McConnell's taking a hardline stance, Mitch McConnell's not running for office this year. You know, there are 2/3 of the seats up for grabs this year are Republican seats. And it goes back to that backlash that I talked about earlier, where presidents who fuck with the court, or Congresses that try to fuck with the court, they see very negative backlash when it comes to the following election. And you know, there's a lot of Republicans in very poachable districts this election cycle that are nervous and they want to keep their seats. And if they can convince the people that they were on the side of justice on this one, they were on the side of the court, that they may very well be able to keep their seats.
Maybe.
So who's ready for some Supreme Court trivia? You guys ready for that?
Supreme Court trivia. We need a sounder for that.
We need
a gavel. Here's the sounder.
I'm ready to lose.
So, who was the first? Who was the first woman appointed to the Supreme Court, guys? Oh, come on!
I gotta go with Yo Mama.
No, no, definitely not. Come on, Sandra.
I'll facepalm for you,
Sandra Day O'Connor. Come on now.
Oh, for fuck's sake! I got the oh for fuck's sake from Justin.
For fuck's sake. Okay, so who was the first African American appointed to the Supreme Court? I've mentioned all these names.
I know you have.
Doesn't mean we're smart.
Anyone in the audience wants to jump in and
Thomas Carlin?
Okay,
Clarence Thomas.
Clarence Thomas.
I think that's what he was trying to say, actually.
I don't know.
Harlan was, remember, we said the oldest Chief Justice ever nominated.
Harlan Lincoln, who has
how about Thurgood Marshall?
Thurgood Marshall.
Obviously, this is going to be a little-known fact with the two of you. I'm sure that other people are aware of this, but Thurgood Marshall was Dr. Martin Luther King's lawyer with the ACLU, or excuse me, with the NAACP. Back when Martin Luther King started.
I've got a public service announcement.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is why you don't do drugs, because you don't pay attention in school.
Sorry,
I'll tell you what, we're going to have to. What? You know, I really wish that we would have gotten. I really wish that we would have gotten, one of my con law teachers on the show tonight to,
make us look even more foolish.
I know, right?
Well, no, and I think that as we move forward in this process, we probably will. Dr. Crook, probably one of my all-time favorites from the law classes that I took. She sat as she was head of the Republican Party from the state that she was from. Very educated person, and I think she'd be great to have in this conversation. We might have to invite her next time we talk about the courts, or as this ramps up a little bit more, maybe. It'd be a lot of fun, and she could school the shit out of all of us, because she runs circles around me, and it is
that
amazing.
Makes me feel a little better.
Yeah, she's just an absolutely incredible woman. I don't think I need to preface that or qualify that by saying woman. She's just an incredible person in general to have on the show. But so last one. This is for all the marbles, right? How many Supreme Court justices have there been?
Good Lord. He seems like this should be so obvious.
30?
No, there's got to be way more.
Yeah, Justin, there's been 30. Tony, you want to take a guess?
130.
You're the closest. It's actually 112.
Hey!
112. So keep in mind, we've had 44 presidents, right? 44 presidents. So if you have between 5 and 9 justices on the court at any given time, you're probably going to have more than 30 fucking justices in 230 years. I could be wrong, but
half of them were all 150 years old by the time they stopped.
Yeah, they all stepped down at about 130 years old.
No wonder we got so much done for a while. They were all dead.
You're going to make me crawl in a hole.
Well, that one was just ridiculous.
Hey, that's a friend of mine.
There we go. So we've got some people joining for the first time. Welcome,
Hey,
Jeremy.
well, thanks for everybody that has watched so far too.
Yeah.
Since we're talking,
We've had a pretty good audience coming in and out so far tonight. But who was the longest serving associate justice in the history of the court?
I thought you said that was the last one. Was the
Longest
last
serving, not the oldest. Longest serving.
No, I thought you said the
Wasn't
last
that
question.
Clarence Thomas?
Question.
No, not
It was one of the names you
I bet-
mentioned.
Scalia.
It was one of the
That
names
has
that
to
I
be-
mentioned tonight.
Scalia must be up there because
Scalia's up there. It was like 30-some years.
Yeah. Scalia's up there, but it's not the longest. So,
No. It starts with an H, doesn't it?
no, it's William O. Douglas. William Douglas. We mentioned that earlier. 36 years, 7
Doesn't
months,
even
and
have an
8
H.
days. He served from 1939 to 1975. A
Wow.
long
that's
time.
incredible.
It's a long time. So,
He's seen a lot of shit.
what's that?
He's seen a lot of shit.
You saw a lot of shit.
Man.
Yeah, the Great Depression, civil rights, president getting shot, and
Yeah.
president resigning from office, or pretty close to. President resigning from office. So,
Women gaining the right to vote.
Remember, right?
what's that?
Women gaining the right to vote, right?
No, that was Justin. That was back,
Before?
that was back in 1919, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, so coming up, I think I'm gonna take Justin to civics class. So, but yes, kids, if you're watching this at home, don't do drugs. You end up like Justin.
Yeah. Don't be like Justin.
Don't be like Justin.
Yep.
Please don't.
You won't know shit about history.
Oh
my gosh.
The great thing is with Justin, when we get into one of our religious topics that we'll have coming up, he will be the one making us look like the fools. So,
yeah, I mean I think that's why we work so well together. Is we all have
Everybody
our own
has their
strengths
niche.
and-
yeah, I absolutely agree. I think it makes it.
This is not my niche.
No. I think we're finding that out the hard way. Well, I think history is probably not your niche, but you definitely did a lot of research for the show, talking about the potential candidates that we think might be put forward, how the process works in general. You know, I think that everyone's.
I even tried to learn somebody's name that I didn't know.
Yeah, that one. I'll tell you what. That one was difficult. I found like 7 or 8 different ways to pronounce this. Tony goes out, finds one website, runs it through the translator or whatever it is, and gets us Srinivasan, right?
Yeah.
And never mispronounces it.
And you still have shows on television mispronouncing this man's name.
Yeah, you do. And you have, well, I can understand. I mean, if an anchor can't pronounce Sanders without calling him sandwiches, I think
that should be his new name now.
A problem. Yeah, I'm going to keep calling Bernie sandwiches. One, because I'm not going to vote for him, and two, because it's just fucking hilarious.
Bernie
sandwiches.
President Bernie sandwiches.
And the guest on the show tonight's going to be, Vermont Senator Bernie sandwiches.
Burnt sandwiches.
Burnt sandwiches. There you go. Love it. Love it. That's great.
Burnt sandwiches.
Burnt sandwiches. So who was the first Hispanic on the court, Justin? You should know that. You should know this one.
Now it's my turn.
Yeah, it is.
No, I don't know. I don't know either. That's why I'm doing that. I'm deflecting attention from myself.
No.
Justin,
I have embarrassed myself enough for everybody here.
there you go. So it's Justice Sotomayor.
Okay.
And I love how.
Hey, isn't she also up for potential nomination? And we didn't really mention her.
No, she's on the court, Justin.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why she's the first Hispanic to sit on the court, Justin.
You know that gap? You know that gap in your computer desk? It's not just for your legs. It's for your whole body.
Hey,
crawl right in there.
If you came here to sit there and just expect all the right stuff. You came to the wrong show.
Yeah.
Well, we're definitely not the smartest people in any of these rooms, and I'm the only one in here. So.
We definitely probably make some shit up when we can't figure it out. But Justin Sotomayor. The funny story about Sotomayor is when she was being nominated, all the news outlets were like, "Oh yeah, she's the parents of Puerto Rican immigrants," and all I could think to myself was, "Really?" Because the last time I fucking looked, Puerto Rico was part of America. I don't think you immigrate from Puerto Rico to the United States. I think it's called the United States.
I'm sure you need a passport to get from there.
Believe it or not, it was probably the same assholes that can't pronounce Srinivasa and burnt sandwiches. So
now I want a sandwich.
I don't know. I could be wrong.
I've got one.
Dude.
It's a Quiznos sandwich. I was waiting until after the show.
You always got to do something like that. If you're not getting up to get something to drink, you're pulling out sandwiches. And
you got to answer one of these questions right. You got to answer one of these questions.
It's
right.
not burnt.
Okay, Justin.
It's toasted.
Justin, I'm gonna let you redeem yourself. You ready?
All right.
Who is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court right now?
Oh my! I don't know.
I gave him a chance, folks. I gave him a chance.
I'm just gonna make shit up.
Okay, make it up.
Who is Justin Bieber.
Justin, we got Tony saying Justin Bieber.
Justin Bieber, for sure. I know this. I'm positive.
It's Justin Bieber.
No, he's looking it up.
John Roberts.
Cheating.
John Roberts
He's cheating.
Justin.
Blatant cheating. I told you before the show started your keyboard was loud.
What school has the most? What school has graduated the most justices currently sitting on the bench?
I want to go. I'm gonna guess Harvard since we were talking about it.
Justin,
what did you say?
Harvard or Yale?
What was the question?
What school has graduated the most justices currently sitting on the bench?
I would go Harvard.
Yeah, it's Harvard. They have 5. Yale has 3, and Columbia has
Current
1.
Or all
Current. I think all time. I mean, it's Ivy League dominated all time. I mean, you're looking at Harvard and Yale, Columbia.
Every time I hear about somebody that's a lawyer that's either in Senate or even a lot of the lists that we've looked at for the potential candidates all seem to have graduated from Harvard or Yale. So I figured it was one of those two.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And
now, how many of these people we've talked about were on the Harvard or Yale rowing team? Do we know that?
That's not a Supreme Court question. That's a question for loser rowers, I guess.
Hey,
they got some pretty.
Hey, were you a rower, Justin? Were you a rower?
I wasn't a rower, but I love the Skull and Bones show with the guy from Dawson's Creek.
The Skull and Bones show with the guy from Dawson Creek.
Yeah, it's
He was a rower.
He was a rower.
It's called the movie's called The Skulls.
Yes,
and it's about an underground society in Ivy League schools.
Well, it's Yale is Skull and Bones, but yeah.
It was
it's
a good
based
movie.
on that.
I think Yale's also known as the CIA's backyard. That's where they get all their big talent from.
I thought they were a symbol at Quantico.
After they graduate from Yale, yeah.
They put them back together.
All right, so I'm done with the trivia because I feel that I've made you look like an ass enough, and I don't want to keep doing that.
I want to try to get one right.
Thanks.
I want to try to know one.
Thanks for the surprise segment.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hey,
well, this was brilliant. What a great way to end the show on a light note.
Yeah,
we're laughing now.
Absolutely, I think it's great.
Yeah, it was perfect.
So we are a little bit over time tonight, but we appreciate you guys stopping in and watching. For those of you watching on replay, we appreciate that as well. If you're watching, thanks for the clicks. If you're watching on Blab, the replay on Blab, you can definitely add. You can give applause or hands up or whatever those. Or is that props to whomever you would like while watching the replay. But just to kind of plug us again, we are the Junkie Chunks. We've got Drunky Chunk, who's with us tonight. Justin, also known as Minty Chunk, who's with us tonight. My name is Dylan Walter. I go by Dylan Chunk because I'm not that creative. And
we'll figure one out for
we'll
you.
figure something out. It's probably going to be Chunky Chunk. I don't know. Maybe Chocolate Chunk.
Double Chunk.
Fucking Skinny Chunk. I don't know. Whatever it is. Skinny Chunk. Skinny is Chunk. How about that one? Velvet Chunk. Yeah. I don't think that fits the personality. But again, be sure to
velvety
follow us.
On the inside.
But be sure to follow us. You can follow us a number of ways. Follow us on Twitter at Junkie Chunks. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Junkie Chunks. On the web at www.junkiechunks.com. Replays are available every week on blab.im and youtube.com. All you have to do is look under the heading Junkie Chunks. We appreciate you guys stopping by tonight. Join us next week because we actually have a really good topic next week. We're going to actually be talking about gravitational waves. And
it's a double down.
It is. We're going to be talking about gravitational waves, and we're going to be talking about 5D data.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. New tech that was just
360 terabytes.
360 terabyte storage that can last 14 billion years without losing it in extreme temperatures. I think up to, what is it, like 1100 degrees Celsius, something like that. Yeah, possibly more. So it's huge. You can store up to 160 million books on this device, and in the whole of human history, only 130 million books have been written, which is really cool. So we're going to talk about that next week. Feel free to join us. Again, we are the Junkie Chunks, and we definitely appreciate you guys stopping by tonight. You have a good night.
Bye.